This was the week where the Biden administration finally agreed to push for patent waivers of the COVID-19 vaccine at the World Trade Organization. Obviously, this couldn't come soon enough. 36 countries have seen a rise in the virus, with India being the worst country since the start of the pandemic, 400,000 cases a day. Meanwhile, in the United States, the demand for the vaccine is slowing down, and that is not good. This is apparently thanks to a lot of mistrust in it. And it turns out that a vastly under-resourced education system plus a profit-driven healthcare system, if you have faith in, plus Facebook equals just milky-brained Americans who do not want to be vaccinated. And what do we think was going to happen? We learned that the United States might not reach herd immunity through vaccinations. And let's agree that like calling something herd immunity is just not the best way to reach people who regularly use the term sheeple. You know, like don't call it a herd.
Right.
This was kind of some good news, which is that the Biden administration is switching approaches. They're getting people vaccinated through smaller vaccination operations like pop-ups, mobile clinics, walk-ins at pharmacies, and then coding the vaccine in Facebook memes about someone being canceled by a woke mob. And you know, that's the most irresistible thing to Americans. So they're switching strategies. You guys, what do you make of this hesitancy? Do you both know someone who's like, I'm not going to do it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. And my immediate question was, well, why? What are your thoughts? And they were like, oh, I just don't want to put that stuff in my body. You know, that's usually the refrain. Is like, I just don't think I want to put that stuff in my body. And meanwhile, you're like, they're vaguely into holistic medicine. You're like, it is ancient Chinese medicine, right? You understand that that's what it is. That's what this is. So you give yourself a little bit. It's something that was discovered a very long time ago through the very same sources you're trusting your life with. Let's just reframe it. Let's just
I love how you're like, the vaccine is from China because there's a little bit of the virus in it. And they're like, oh, okay, I see how that could work.
You're just gonna mix things around and confuse them, you know?
Let me ask you, is this person also your hairdresser?
No, or is that I have not used a blow dryer in a while either.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's the only person who I know, and it's like but I really can't quit her, even though she's probably been the closest to me of anyone other than my boyfriend since the pandemic started. But I'm like, I need this haircut, but I really want you to take the vaccine.
Yes. Are you working on her like a slow, soft blade?
We'll see. Because I got my second shot, and let me just say, I took it like a boss. Like, watch me keel over right now. but I
straight vomit into the camera.
Straight projectile. No, but I handled it. Like I mopped the whole house the second day.
Oh,
slept like a baby both nights. Anyway. John,
I definitely felt it go inside of me, and I felt like it felt like I was being injected with like a Sun Ra song, like an old jazzy, like there was like a psychedelic. I just felt like I could feel the aliens dancing on the pyramids and the like microchip and the center. You know, like it just. Did you feel it? Did anyone else feel it? Like just freeform jazzing its way through my body. I truly felt it.
I think that was it. That might have been a different injection. It was concurrent, maybe. I just got J&J, and I was sore for like a day. I got it before the announcement about the blood clots, so I guess I got it with less anxiety than later people would. But I don't think I know anyone who isn't going to take it, but I probably know people who might not take it but wouldn't say that. Maybe I can think of a few people. I do know anecdotally, just because you mentioned your hairdresser, my wife's hairdresser has been spreading conspiracy theories to her the entire pandemic.
Cool.
Telling you, these Los Angeles hairdressers, just like, there's a type. There's a type. And they like spray themselves with chemicals consistently.
Yes. Not want to put that in my body. You're swallowing hairspray.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that I know any.
What do you make of this new strategy, like Biden's strategy to pivot to away from mass vaccination centers and towards they're doing like community outreach and things like this?
Yeah, especially like if there are so many people whose political identity has become an opposition to big government trying to force them to put something in their body, then doing it in a stadium has very like, sci-fi movie vibes. I was fine with it. Some people may not be. That said, you can make it as convenient as you want. We've got a certain baked in and potentially growing percentage that are never going to do it, because every night there's a new monologue from Tucker Carlson and a new conspiracy theory. And the solution to Tucker's rhetorical questions is not, well, could I get it at my local CVS?
Right.
It's, why is George Soros lying to us?
Right. But how do they rectify that Trump has said it's a wonderful and great grand vaccination that everybody should get, that he is responsible for? Like, I feel like we should be advertising that he's responsible for it. Sure. Yeah. Great. Absolutely. That's the guy. He did it.
That's a great point, Emily. Like, there should be, in addition to, they're working with like local doctors and, local sort of community leaders, which is great. I'm super heartened by the fact they're pivoting, but there should also just be a bunch of ads run that like show Trump and a bunch of right wingers going, yes, I got vaccinated. Oh, it's great. It's perfect. Like, yes, we should do that. Like, that absolutely would convince people, showing, and a little bit of a little jab to the right, which we're going to talk about later. Biden might not be that into doing, He might not want to dunk on or point out the hypocrisy of some of these folks who've already gotten vaccinated. Because that's the thing with like, I was thinking about Greg Gutfeld's like horrible comedy show, late night comedy show. Good God, that fucking train wreck. And how like, there's only like 4 people in the audience, they're all laughing, or, they're the ankle bracelet that sort of like tightens every time a joke happens, just zap, then they laugh, because otherwise they don't know when. Like, that even in Fox Studios or whatever, like the office buildings, they must still be following COVID protocol, even though they're spewing, all kinds of misinformation. But then when it comes to what they're practicing, they absolutely are taking.
I mean, Tucker's vaccinated. His whole family is vaccinated. Everyone that he knows is vaccinated because they're rich and they have access to the information. But the issue. Like, I've given credit to Trump like 7 times when he's said to take the vaccine. The issue is that they don't have to take a look at both of those facts, that I've been told it's bad for you, but the person I trust more than anyone else in the world says it's good. Their entire life, their media consumption, both in social media and on stuff like Fox, is designed to avoid having to experience cognitive dissonance. They don't want to have to think about those things. Tucker Carlson does not acknowledge that Trump said that. Like, Media Matters is a great analysis of how little coverage that actually got. Like, they love talking about what Trump says, but when he talks about that, it's not worth covering for some reason. There's a particular sort of cowardice to them that they don't have to acknowledge these uncomfortable facts because they know that there's no benefit for their audience if they do it. And if they bring up these things, it's possible they'll suffer some strike back from their audience.
It's almost as if they have a policy to only report homicidal news that is homicidal, that is actually murderous. Like, that seems like their responsibility almost. So like, we got to make sure we just keep people really misinformed.
Mostly like in their heads homicide, like what could potentially happen if, Black people could vote freely.
Right. That's the other part of it.
Or were not repressed when they took the streets. It's very much a boogeyman rather than what. I'm very curious about like what is the base? I think the anti-vax community is something that's been growing, and under Trump, it was like there was a fucking pouring gasoline on it, and especially with the pandemic, it's like I just finished the Q doc finally because you can't watch it that back to back, and you're like, oh man, the anti-science, like, I want please feed me the easiest, craziest conspiracy theory, and that includes like anti-vax stuff, it got so much worse with the pandemic and people being at home and people being online constantly. And then of course, anti-vax community is going to get so much worse because we are now in a pandemic. But like, why? Like, who do they think is pulling? Is it just Bill Gates? That's
the big question, is like, who, to what end?
Right.
And the argument that like they're being chipped, it's like we all made this argument. It's like, we're all carrying these fucking chips in our pocket. We have tracking devices on us at all times. What do you want to know? I mean, they've got it.
Yeah.
So what is I just don't understand. It's very much a boogeyman situation. And also, right around last year when we hit Memorial Day, Tony, what's his name? God, what's the tall, rapey guy, the life coach, speaker guy?
Ooh.
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins, thank you. He released a 3-hour podcast, right, about how we never should have sheltered with 7 experts right before Memorial Day. And I was like, oh, here we go. Because in the comment section on his Instagram post about it was just all these like pseudo-holistic, semi-anti-vax. It was like there was a congregation of the different communities around that in that moment. And I was like, oh, no.
Just
dear. Yeah, watching like the misinformation sort of bleed around the boundaries of left and right and find this strange middle. And like, to what end? For him, I feel like it's because he makes $5,000 a head congregating people and he wanted everyone to go back outside.
Sure,
That's
of course.
the motivation to say, don't pay attention to this thing.
There is some fun news when it comes to COVID. I know that's sort of a weird thing to say, fun in COVID. Although I was very excited after I got my second vax and turned on all the COVID related songs. There are a few and they slap.
That playlist.
But
give me that playlist.
yeah, hell yeah. There's actually just 2. But anyway, they're good. But Indonesia, which has had one of the worst outbreaks in Asia, 46,000 people have died from it. That's not the fun part. But the fun part is that apparently one of these pharma companies called Kimia Pharma, a few employees from it happened to be washing and reselling nasal swabs. They give 23 witnesses. These are swabs being used at the airport. And they turned this profit, like they made like $120,000, which is not crazy. And apparently it was used to fund the construction of a lavish house for one of the employees. Oh. I love the idea, like, this is the house that a used nasal swab built. Want to see the pool?
I'm getting like swab sweats at the idea of this. Like, I can't. It's too much. I saw my nasal swabs.
Yeah, you've seen them.
Sorry.
They're dirty.
Oh, thank you. Not passable even. So is nobody catching that these were not fresh swabs? Like, I feel like I would have known.
Yeah, like as it's inserted today, this is not as fluffy as I'd been led to believe it would be.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
How many swabs is that to make over 100,000? Was he doing it by hand? Had he figured out some sort of tub system?
Were they licking it off? Just like, mwah.
That guy's got so much COVID. Yeah, I don't know. Like, depending on how much, like, he sounds like the sort of person, or they sound like the sort of people who could have come up with something positive for the pandemic if they have this industrious spirit and they really want to make some money. There were opportunities. You could get one of those massive contracts from the Trump administration, never deliver, without at least actively encouraging the spread of the virus.
Right.
Hey, thanks so much for watching the Bitchuation Room podcast live stream. And while you're here, why don't you just subscribe to this channel? I promise it'll be good. Promise.